Well, welcome back, baseball fans, to another elimination video. Tonight we're going to eliminate the Cleveland Indians, who finished 18 and 10, big winners in the American League North. Kind of a weak division, and a division that either Cleveland or Detroit tends to dominate. Most of the time it's been Detroit. This time it was Cleveland. But once they got into the postseason, after a bye, they got swept by the California Angels, a team who had playoff experience, went to the League Championship Series last year. In Major League Baseball, the Angels were in the League Championship Series in 1979 and 1982 with a very similar roster. So it was not meant to be for these Indians. It's always good, though, that they aren't in the American League East, having to contend with Baltimore, Boston, and New York anymore. Same with Detroit. So they get a better chance of getting to the playoffs, but they need to make better use of that chance. Respectably, an 18 and 13 record, scoring 132 runs, giving up 117 runs. That's a plus 15 there. 266 batting average, 344 on base, very respectable 355 ERA. They had the H boys, Hara, Hargrove, and Hasse, all did nice things. You've got a 298 year out of Delaney, who has a 340 card. He got his 22 stolen bases. Hargrove with a 450 on base. Hara with a 407 on base and 6 steals. One thing missing from this club was the long ball. Joe Charbonneau, the newest kid in town in 1980, got on the bench a lot, as he was mostly dominates lefties, and they didn't face a lot of them, and he only had one homer anyway, with a 273 average. Andre Thornton was a bad year. Forgettable year. Hit 202 with 5 homers and 22 RBIs. Lee Lacy had a bad year as well. Then you have the pitching staff. Jim Kern, great closer, 2 years in a row, the 129 ERA. Buskey setting him up. Len Barker's 81 card as a number 4 starter looks promising. Gaylord Perry, just played by the numbers there. Just okay with the card. Slightly worse than the card played, perhaps. Rick Waits did a fine job. Mixed results there. Really, Eckersley pitched in some really bad luck. He gave up homer 1, fly ball the rest twice. Once in the regular season, once in a playoff game. And the tenures of Gaylord Perry and Dennis Eckersley in Cleveland are running out historically for the Hall of Famers, and we need to get them into their future destinations, and that could be very troublesome for the Indians for next year. So let's take a look now at the Cleveland Indians and pull out the 1978 players, the 878 players. And then we can start building back with, take a peek at who's leaving, and then see the 12 players that are going to start the team. Well, didn't pull all 8 out. There we go. Now we've pulled all 8 out. Sometimes you got to look a little closely at those numbers. All right, so here we are. Your 8 Indians who have to be evaluated in the postseason are coming or going. There's some good baseball players here, so they're going to have some tough decisions to make. Who to come back and so forth. So let's see the first look at who's coming back for next year, and it's going to be. You've seen it's going to be 7 hitters and 5 pitchers. Some good ball players here. All right, so, and then pitching wise, there you go. Okay. So we got a DH in Charbonneau, better suited to be DH than to be an outfielder. You got your platoon catchers are Hasse and Borgman. That's a decent platoon. Hasse and Borgman. Hargrove at first is absolutely great there. You don't mind the lefty's fine. Dubzinski's a fine everyday player in a short sample size. 57 at-bats, but hit 298. So that's a huge break for the Indians to use this guy both ways. Toby Hara, one of his top years in the league. I want to say he had 27 homers in his best year. They're going to run this Delaney card out a couple more times, and it's 341. So really, when you look at this team, I mean, they need one more infielder where Kuiper would be, and a couple more outfielders where Rick Manning and Lee Lacy would be. Now, Barker's coming back, but Waits and Perry and Eckersley all have to be figured out. There's Barker. The bullpen is intact, so they're going to bring the entire bullpen back. Augustino as a lefty, Buskey as a good righty, and then McEnany's a lefty and Kern is a righty. So that's good. They don't do any moves with the bullpen. It's good to go. So not bad. Obviously, they have to address the pitching, second base, center, and outfield. Starting pitching, second base, center, and outfield. So let's see what the Indians do with those spots. Okay, let's take a look at these 1978 guys. We're going to begin with Frank Duffy. I think might be near the end of his rope here. Frank Duffy, he plays through to 1979 with just 3 at-bats. So his career is over. He has to retire. He got to go to the playoffs, though. He probably would not have if he played, well, he might have played in that playoff game for Boston. Game 163. But anyway, he must be retired. Next up is Dwayne Kuiper. He'll continue. And he'll bring his good defense and ability to hit and run. And to hit a homer. Well, actually, I don't know. I think that expired, did it not? Yes. So the ability to hit a home run is over. That happened in 77, and that was it. So, but, you know, 1 home run and 3,754 at-bats. He still has some nice years left. 79, 80, 81, 82. You know, good years. Cleveland and the Giants. So the Indians will bring him back. Yeah, they were going to bring him back. Dwayne Kuiper is coming back to Cleveland at a ballpark near you. Next up is Lee Lacy, an interesting free agent acquisition. It was primarily a National League player with the Pirates and Dodgers, and the Indians went out and grabbed him because he's a nice power hitter, versatile player with some speed. You see his Dodger tenure is all over the place, and the Pirate tenure. Some fantastic years are coming up, and oh boy, Cleveland, you would love to hold on to this guy, would you not? 79 is not very good, but 80 and then 82, 83, and 84 are all fantastic years for the Pirates. Well, I think, though, we like to keep a lot of our star players on their proper major league trajectory. And we know the Pirates, I think they're going to make a deal for him. So if I'm Cleveland, I would just ask for the moon and the stars for Lee Lacy in a trade, and you might get it. He's definitely a keeper, but he'll most likely get traded to the Pirates. Next up is Rick Manning. I mean, because the Pirates are going to start complaining and send a nasty letter to the commissioner about why they can't have their guys. So yeah. Here's Rick Manning, great defensive center fielder. Played most of his career with Cleveland, also with the Brewers. Of course, that glove is fantastic. The batting average isn't good. 82, he hits 270, which is a good sign. He'll come back. You know that. They need him in center field for his glove. Rick Manning's coming back to Cleveland. And Andre Thornton, now he'll be here. They need his bat. He will probably, you know, it's kind of redundant here. Hargrove and Thornton are both pretty darn good defensive first basemen, and they're on the same team at the same time. He misses 1980, and he's got a couple down years. But here's the good news. 82 is in play next year, and he has 700 plate appearances for your Clevetown Indians, and he's an all-star with 23 MVP votes and 32 more home runs. This is the magic of the carryover league, folks. We maxed out his 78 card 4 years in a row with 33 home runs. Then the moment that card is gone, you skip 79, you skip 80, you skip 81, and you go straight to 82, and you get 4 more years of 32 home runs. This is going to be 8 years of Andre Thornton hitting over 30 years in the carryover league. That's kind of the magic. You want these sort of players to help a team like the Cleveland Indians for a nice chunk of time. They're in their own division. Like I said, they're not in a division with Baltimore and Boston and New York. So maybe Cleveland goes on a little run here, winning this division 2 or 3 years in a row. So that's good news. And the other point to make is that Cleveland is a traditional Major League Baseball team, whereas you also see situations like this happen to expansion teams. So it's good that a traditional team gets a benefit in the 4-year carryover. This sort of situation often makes Hall of Famers so incredible that there needs to be a new building for them. For instance, you could put George Brett's batting titles of 1976 and 1980 for 8 years because they're 4 years apart, just to give you some comparison of how powerful the carryover league is for Hall of Famers. So there's 4 guys. So you can see the trade probably happening now. And one of their pitchers is coming back, and I think I know who that is. So let's look at Gaylord Perry first. How many Gaylords are there? Gaylord Perry would be a great player for an expansion team because he traveled around so much after this long tenure with San Francisco and then Cleveland. But now he starts to get into that suitcase of Texas and San Diego and New York and Atlanta and Seattle and Kansas City. He's got 79 with 3.06 ERA for the Pads up in play. Then after that, it doesn't matter too much. He's got maybe 1 more year left after that. Do the Padres really need him at age 40? Not necessarily. You could make a case to just let him finish his career in Cleveland, really. Goes to the Yankees on their 1980 team. And then in 81, I mean, after that, he's still kicking around, but it's nothing really special. I don't really have a preference to where he should go now, other than to say that the Padres got ripped off for this Cy Young year. The 1 year he was good in San Diego. They didn't get it. The Indians got it. So, but he is definitely considered a keeper. We'll call it a trade, though. All right, speaking of Hall of Famers, you got Eckersley. It's time for the Red Sox to get on the damn phone. They were supposed to have him. They didn't want him. The Red Sox were fine. They had Bill Lee, Louis Tiant. They put Bob Stanley in the rotation and Steve Ranko, and they said, well, we don't have any room for Eckersley. So this was the card. 23-year-old Dennis Eckersley won 20 games. That's the card we just played, and we played it with the Indians. Should have played it with the Red Sox. So the Red Sox better get their guy. He's only got 1 more year on 3 days rest until 82. 79 is really the last great year as a starter. Then it gets kind of transition to the bullpen kind of thing. Time for Boston to come calling. So that's definite trade, in my opinion. Which leads us to the last player, Rick Waits. So Cleveland is at a high with a bunch of keeper players. So they're going to be on the phones all off season. Rick Waits is an Indian. And he's right in the middle of an Indian tenure from 79, 80, 182, 83. These years aren't particularly fantastic, but the one thing that's important is he throws left-handed. And this is a team that already has Len Barker in the rotation. They already have 2 lefties in the bullpen, so they need just 1 lefty starter. I'm thinking they keep Rick Waits just because he's left-handed. And they move Perry and Eckersley and Lee Lacy onto their proper trajectory. And then they can make a lot of nice trades with those guys, pick up some draft tokens. They can couple some of these regular players they don't necessarily like anymore and move them out. You know, Lee Lacy and Glenn Borgman, or Gaylord Perry and Jerry Dubzinski, Dennis Eckersley and Jerry Augustine, or I don't know, something like that. The way you trade your keepers is you couple them with a regular position player that's already on the roster for next year and improve it. And then if you don't get enough improvement, you demand a draft token from your opponent, and then you can move up in the draft for better players. So, great news for Cleveland. 7 keepers. They still have to whittle it down to 4, but they have all offseason to do that. That's it tonight for eliminating the Cleveland Indians. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.